Greetings, YouTube. Alan Lube here. It's been quite a while. I don't even remember what the last video I posted was. It might have been my PQ Bravo deck list, I want to say. But yeah, I haven't really been keeping up too much with the game after PQ season. I wasn't going to Barcelona. I definitely watched Worlds, but during that time, it was definitely nice to kind of take an off season for Flesh and Blood. And then now with the new year, new set coming, Pro Tour coming up, feeling refreshed to get back into it. And just wanted to recap my recent experience at the Age Open, which is a grassroots tournament scene that's happening in SoCal, similar to the Realm Games, just in Southern California. Some of you might have already seen the results or the stream or the deck that I'm running, but I just wanted to cover the quick deck list of what I did and stuff. So yeah, let's get right into it. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. New year, new resolution, all that jazz. A part of me is maybe I'll try to push out more content. I frequently have ideas of videos I want to post. I just never get around to actually making them. So apologies for that, but I'll try a little more this year. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so let's get right into it. I didn't really change much with my deck list. I really only changed, I want to say, 5 cards. So initially, I took out the 2 Warmongers and put in the 2 blue Outmuscles. Well, actually, no. I think that was... No, Outmuscle was already in my deck. I took out the 2 Warmongers, which was for Lexi, for 2 blue Buckles. And then during my games there, it was actually in my top 4 match against Zayn on his Aelia, I was like, Warmongers could be nice in this matchup. But at the same time, I don't know. Warmongers, it was just never amazing in Bravo. It was fine. I think it was almost like a necessary evil because of how good Lexi was. And it was just one of those cards that could keep you competitive. But in terms of Azalea, Bolton, Viserai, Vincent, and any other, good Warmonger target, I don't feel as though it's super necessary. Maybe against Bolton, it's okay. If they're trying to Saber combo you, I'm down to just kind of throw big disruptive attacks. And if they're playing quote-unquote normally, then, well, it's still okay. But it's not amazing because you can't stop their hero ability. It's a reaction. And, they can still just play out a turn just fine, even under Warmongers. It's only really to slow down their Saber to maybe get one more turn to smack them. Not that that'll change too much. But yeah, so those 2 cards I changed. And then I took out Titan's Fist, Buckler, and Tunic. Tunic I always played for Icelander. I've tried it in other matchups, and I'll talk about the Tunic Bravo list later. But I only played it in the past for Icelander, so that one was definitely one I would take out as well. I ended up just putting in Grander. And then the last 2 spots, Titan's Fist, Buckler, I added 2 more cards. What cards did I add? I am blanking. Maybe it was the E-Strikes. I don't remember, to be honest. But yeah, so basically the only real additions to the deck since my last update was these Buckles and Grander. I added Buckle because I couldn't decide what reds to put in, and I didn't want to reconfigure sort of the sideboard plant side. Sorry, my cat is hitting my keyboard. I didn't want to reconfigure my whole sideboard plan. So in my head, I was just I'll just put in the Buckles and I'll just replace Outmuscle for any matchup I don't want Outmuscle, which is most of them. But in the matchups I do want Outmuscle, I really want Outmuscle. So that's there. And then with my last spot, I just put in Grander for fun because I had just got the card maybe a month or 2 ago. And I had never played with it before, except on tabletop or something. But I didn't actually end up playing it. Well, I did end up playing it, but only because I played into so many Kanos at the Age. The first Kano I played in round 3, I was looking at my sideboard and I was like, wait, Grander actually kind of works here. So I ended up just taking out an unmovable for Grander, and that was that. So yeah, so that was the deck. I didn't really make that many changes. It's largely the same. The good old Tectonic, Anathos, Bravo, Showstopper, Slammer, Jammer. And yeah, I have 1 Fate, 1 red unmovable, 2 blue unmovables. I guess with how I like to play my deck, I don't like having too many fates, but originally when I had those extra slots, I did want to test out like 2 fate or maybe even 3 fate or 3 sigil. So unsure about that. Sigil also is a card that I don't see in a lot of Bravo lists, but almost every time I play it, it feels either neutral or good. There are definitely times where I draw it and I'm like, this isn't ideal here, but it doesn't lose me the game. And in most other situations, it feels like it helps me get ahead in the matchup. So that's why I have it in. You can probably refer to my like previous videos on all my other Bravo matchups because things are largely the same, and I don't want to rehash the same ideas over and over. So let's just go into a quick little recap. Round 1, I played Dromai. This was a win. It was a red line Dromai, and personally, I have more experience into the quote-unquote big dragon type Dromai lists, the ones that set up slower, whether they're on Ghostly Touch or they're on Chromai Ash or things like that. That matchup's quite comfortable for me. But this one, red line, is like a little trickier. Like you kind of just have to like pick your right spots to be more aggressive and know what to leave on the board, know what attack actions to block or not block. Because if they lead their turn with like a sweeping blow, and let's say you can't use all 4 cards in your hand, and you end up blocking that. Let's say your hand is blue, 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 CNC, and the best thing you can play is pitch blue for CNC. Well, you probably want to block this sweeping blow and maybe pop a dragon. Maybe that ends their turn. But you never know if they're going to go like sweeping blow into CNC or sweeping blow into Cadaver's Contraband. So it's definitely gotten a little more tricky to play against Dromai, but just keeping track of like what cards they've played, what they're likely to play, how many cards they kept, what they blocked with, if they have an arsenal or not. That's just all things you can take into consideration when trying to figure out what their plan is going to be. Second round was a big dragon Dromai. This was against John. I always feel a little bad because, not always, but this game was definitely, I got off to a hot start, and then one of his tomes, well, let me preface this. He pitched one of his passing mirages, I believe, to the bottom of the deck. So that was something I was keeping track of. And then maybe like 5-ish turns into the game when I already had a bit of a life lead and he didn't have too many dragons. He plays Tome. He draws into 2 passing mirages, discards his entire hand, and I kind of just went from there. It would have been like an incredible mountain for him to come back from that spot. He was able to get an early Tomultai to pop my Null Rune Boots, but he wasn't able to get any tempo in the matchup, which I feel is really important for Dromai. Like, I don't love giving tips to other decks about how to beat me, but, in general, I feel like a lot of the Dromais I do win against, they put too much emphasis on pitching a specific Chromai combo, or, they Arsenal Tomultai and they're waiting for their opportunity to play it because that's one of their quote-unquote win conditions. I find that the matches that I do lose to Dromai, generally, they're not setting up a win condition. They're playing for tempo, trying to get like the momentum going. Like they have dragons, they have Mirgai Kyloria, they have Chromais on board. They have something that makes me need to slow down. And because of that, that's what gives you the room to sort of set up your end game. Like if you draw Tomultai early and you arsenal it and you're waiting for your moment, I just get to smack you the whole time while your arsenal is clunked and you're waiting for like a blue and 2 reds. So that's what I would have to say about Dromai. I don't think Dromai is like necessarily favored or anything anymore for Bravo. I just have played the matchup a lot, like since the hero came out basically, and have adjusted over time. Round 3 was a Kano. This one, if I'm trying to remember correctly, it was like my deck was rolling higher on average. His deck was like a little cold. He didn't see any of his wildfires. They were at the bottom of his deck. Sometimes when I attack him with like Zealous into Hammer, he has like a potion in hand, can't fully block out. And, those potions can definitely facilitate Kano's combo when he has to go for it if I'm pressuring lethal. But sometimes those potions just lose you too much life, and then you pop off just a bit too early. But, the potions are insanely strong. It's a necessary evil, so it is what it is. One thing to note, so I did somehow managed to beat 4 Kanos in this event, and I believe, and I still believe, that Kano is Bravo's worst matchup. Things definitely went right for me. They didn't go as right for my opponent, but also notably, I won the die roll on all 3. I don't remember if I won the die roll in all 3, but I was able to go second in all 3 of my matches, and I think that's really important. Because if Kano gets to go first, realistically, you're only leaking maybe 2 damage at most, and then I just get to, present whatever the best damage I can with my hand is. If I'm forced to go first, I can leak maybe, like, if I hit a chokeslam, I can leak 5. If I hit a crippling, that's amazing, and I can leak 8. But at the same time, if I do dominate turn 1 and it's a crippling crush, then Kano just gets to use his 4 cards to activate Kano and leak as much damage back to me as he can while still blocking with 1 card, or not blocking depending on what he draws. And then he draws back up, I draw back up, and then I'm on the back foot. And I don't like being on the back foot. So round 4 was a Riptide. That was a win. We were both 3-0 at this point. And whenever I play a more niche hero, I do get a little anxious, isn't the right word, but a little nervous. But I wasn't particularly worried because in my mind, I didn't really think Riptide had the right tools to beat Bravo, which was basically true. He was on a more interesting mid-range / fatigue style trap list with things like Wounded Bull or Vandal's Fighting Spirit. And I mess around with like Fabrary a lot and build like random decks, and I've actually thought about a Riptide deck like that before, but whenever I look at it in my mind, I'm just like, can I even beat any hero with like a decent weapon? Like, definitely not Bravo. Can I beat Dorinthia? Maybe, but that's a little scary. So I just basically swung my hammer a lot. He played the new card, Intoxicating Shot, which gives me, a Quicken and I want to say a Might token. I don't remember what the other token is, but the one that gives me 2 tokens if I eat the damage. And that does play into Riptide's traps, but at the same time, I was like, these tokens are pretty crazy. So I'm just going to eat 4 and throw like Chokeslam into Hammer, or CNC into Hammer, or Buckling Blow into Hammer, or just something. And yeah, we played it out. He ran out of cards in his deck, even though he presented probably like 70 and all that jazz. But Anathos is just like the best weapon when it comes to like grinding and attrition at this point. Like Oldham in the past was the best at like the attrition game plan, but now that the previous heroes have phased out and the power level isn't as high, Anathos really just has become like a question for some decks. Like, can you overcome like just this WTR hammer, which I think is really funny. And I'm gonna miss Anathos when Bravo more than likely LLs this year, but we'll see. Even if he doesn't win a like tier 3 or above event, if he doesn't win a Calling or Worlds or a PT, I still think he might even get there on points, honestly, just because we're gonna have 2 PQ seasons, another RTN season, another PQ season, and a bunch of Callings, a bunch of Battle Hardens, and the points are going up. So Bravo's days are limited, which makes me sad, but it is what it is. Round 5, Kano was against one of my carpooled buddies, which is unfortunate because since this was a 60-player event, even going 4-0 doesn't necessarily lock you, is what we thought at the time. I think in that specific day, it was true, though. If you went 4-0, you were locked, even if you lost the last 2. But we didn't know that going in, so we were still a little nervous. And I think this was probably like the closest one of all the Kano matchups. I didn't run as hot, but neither did he. And then by the time I was pressuring for lethal and he had to pop off, he was like 1 turn away from like hitting the blazing that was just out of range to kill me, even if he had it. But it still was like the closest one. It was he blocked out more and played more potions, which allowed him to sort of like really fish for something big on the turn where I'm pressuring for game. So that one was a little worrying. And then I go into round 6 and it's another Kano, and I'm like, okay, eventually I'm going to get blown up for sure, right? Like my luck just can't keep going like this. And this was Eugene, and shout outs to Eugene because I think a lot of people probably question his plays on stream, and I'm sure when he goes back and watches the stream games or something, like he'll be like, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. But in the moment, I could definitely understand the plays he was trying to make. For example, in general, he just plays Kano extremely aggressively. Like, he will eat damage to do a bunch of damage on his turn. And sometimes that will work, and sometimes that won't work. Sometimes he'll run someone over, and sometimes I'll run him over. And it happened in round 6. He wasn't familiar with how I played the matchup. I think in general, a lot of Bravos tend to play it a bit slower. Like, they'll be more aggressive early, and then they'll slow down a bit. Or if the cards don't line up right, they'll play slowly in general. Or they'll try to block as much damage as possible so they don't output as much damage as they could. But for the most part in these games, my general thought process is if it's their turn and I can play all my cards, I'm not going to prevent any arcane. If I don't need this extra blue, then I will prevent arcane. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw absolutely every single card I can at him. And for the most part, that worked. It got me there. I don't know if that's the best strategy. I've played Kano and CC maybe like 10 or less times in the past year. And like half of those were losses before this event. So I guess I was just due. Going into top 8, I'm the first seed, and I got a Bravo mirror. This was against Colin. He's a great player, actually. He's only 18. He's new. He just started playing maybe like 2 months ago or so. And it was interesting because he played the matchup very well, in my opinion. I don't think he made any glaring mistakes. He was being more defensive. He was saving armor. He played out his threats efficiently. I got pummeled multiple times this game. But very notably, I chose to go first, and I Showtime into Pulverize. I heave it. I get to dominate it. And that puts me just slightly ahead for the whole game. And whenever he eats like 3 damage from Hammer to go Zealous, I do the same thing. I eat a bit of damage to throw Zealous back. So then it's just like equivalent trades for the most part throughout the game. And I think there's maybe only like 3 or 4 things I might have done that game that he might not have registered, but it worked out. It's the Bravo Mirror is also another matchup I'm unsure about sideboarding now. In the past, I used to just always play a clean 60, but recently I've been like testing the waters on going up to like 65, 66, and overall the consistency of the deck still feels good. One thing I have noticed in the past with Bravo Mirrors when I run 60 is that just depending on like the variance of the game, there are times where like there's really only 1 red left in my deck, and luckily I'm still able to close out these games. But if things go a little differently, or I make one mistake or they make less mistakes, then like I might not be able to close the game. So that's why I'm thinking about trying to board up. Still not sure if that's correct. I think playing for second cycle is really nice. I think versus Oldham, I always wanted to play 60 because it was a slower matchup in general and they don't pressure as much. And because of that, I can afford to like pitch a really nice second cycle. In terms of the Bravo Mirror, it's really like a toss up. Like out of nowhere, they can just take an extra 3 from your Hammer and then pulverize you and then take tempo for the rest of the game. So in that case, maybe it's still better to just play 60 and just be more aggressive. I haven't really played against a Bravo that Pele's 12 D-reacts plus and tries to be on the back foot the entire game. I feel like usually that loses more games than it wins, just because if I'm playing out all my attacks and they're blocking, even if they board up or they have more defense reactions, they generally will fatigue faster. Although maybe if they have 12 or 15 D-reacts, then you can afford to play that way and make it to second cycle. I'm not sure. I don't practice the Bravo Mirror that often. I've just kind of been going with it, and so far it's been working. And then one day I'm going to lose an important match in a mirror and I'm going to be extremely sad and question if I'm even good at Bravo. All right, and then going into the semis, I'm playing against Zayn, who's my teammate on Stroop Waffle, and it's funny because we have access to each other's lists. Like he's played my Bravo list before in one of the PQs, and he sent in the Discord like his Aelia list, but I didn't look at it because I don't play Aelia. But going into the matchup, I still think it's a Bravo favorite. I didn't plan particularly to be defensive or aggressive. That's one of the things I like most about Flesh and Blood and playing Bravo in general, is that I can kind of just adapt to how I want to play the matchup based on draws, based on what's happening, based on how they draw, based on how I draw, just based on so many different factors based on the matchup. So I'm able to pick first, and I draw into Sync and Fate, Crippling Crush, and a blue. So I'm pretty sad. I ended up just pitching one of my D-Reacts to make a Surge, and then I arsenal I arsenal the Crippling, and I save the Sync. And on his turn, he starts off with a red Bolton shot, pitching an arrow, I believe, a blue arrow, I want to say, and that's it. So in my head, I'm like, this is very likely a Rain Razors. If it's not, then that's fine. I end up blocking 2 with my Crater Fist, because if he Rain Razors and I'm able to play my Sync, then I shut down the rest of his turn and I get to play my Crippling out from Arsenal. If he doesn't play the Rain Razors, that's fine. I sacrifice my 2 armor basically to get full tempo of the game, and that's kind of what happened. I drew into another Crippling. I played the Crippling from Arsenal. Unfortunately, didn't dominate that one. And because of that, he's on the back foot. And then I draw into Dominated Spinal. And then I play Dominated Crippling. And I'm just beating him pretty hard with my draws. But then there was a very crucial moment in the game where he attacks me, I believe, with Remorseless for 8. I have an E-Strike and Arsenal, and I draw into Starstruck, Rouse, and 2 blues. At that point, I was already at a very sizable health lead. And my thought process in that game was, I'm so far ahead right now. If I just play the value game, I don't realistically think that he can come back. And while I still think that's true, and it still worked out, I do think playing Dominated Starstruck there was the correct play, because, and that's just my inexperience playing against Aelia. He can't stop it unless he has a Sync Below in Arsenal, or he gives me his Perch Grapplers and Tunic, and even then he can only play a 5-attack arrow. And then if he blocks with Tunic early, then I can really afford to slow down the game because he's not getting that value. But I end up playing the Rouse into E-Strike and a Hammer. He eats all of it, goes down to 7. I want to say I'm at like 30 or 33. And at that point, I was like, okay, let's just block out and slowly whittle him down. And it was just unfortunate because I really should have tried to pick my spots better. I don't think I could have lost that game from that position, even with the game plan I had decided to go with. My thought process was to just lower the variance, and if I just block out and slowly whittle him down, eventually he's just going to have to start blocking. But giving him the space to play 3 Codex of Frailties, and each of them I think I didn't have an Arsenal, is like, that'll help you come back into the game for sure. So that happened. And then there was like one play later in the game where he gets an aim counter on Bolton Shot and then plays Deadeye. I totally forget that Deadeye has an on-hit, because at that point in the game, I was just like, okay, it's basically smooth sailing from here. Like the health total got closer, but I didn't think realistically there was a way to lose that game. My hand was blue Pummel Sigil, so I could have blocked with 2 armor and a blue, swing Hammer for 4, play the Sigil, Arsenal the Pummel, or I could just Hammer for 6. I think it's fine. I don't think taking the Deadeye was the right play. I'm just glad it didn't punish me that much. So I definitely played that game pretty poorly. Got carried a bit by how well I drew early on. But at the same time, a part of me is like, the reason I kind of like took it easy that game and went for certain lines was because of how comfortable I felt after being so far ahead. And maybe that's the wrong thing to do. Maybe it's fine. I'm not sure. Like, I wasn't punished, and realistically, I don't think things could have gone that much worse for me at the end of the day. But that's that. It's a learning experience, so glad to have played that game. Definitely learned a lot from it. And then the last game was against Eugene again on Kano. Similar strategy as to what happened in round 6. He prefers to not block a lot to deal a lot of damage. And because he can try to deal a lot of damage, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to fish for the perfect combo. And so I also drew hot this game. I have my Zealous or my Rouse, and and my Out Muscles and my Pummels and things like that. I'm just dealing a lot of damage. And then it gets to the point where I'm trying to remember. I want to say I'm at 35 health and he's at 3. Oh no, sorry. Let's rewind a bit. I think there was one turn where Eugene stranded a card or a couple cards, and he ate all of the damage from my turn, and his turn on his was he started with Kano and he gets Emeritus Scalding, which is unfortunate. He plays it out, and I don't remember if I AB it or not. Depends on what my hand was. And then he gazes from Arsenal, so he can opt and bring it back to hand and try to deal more damage. But I believe he bottoms the 2 cards he opts, and then I don't remember what happened, but I think he just saw reds or drew reds. He ended up, arsenaling probably Wildfire. Yes, I'm pretty sure it was Wildfire. And just ended up stranding some cards here and there. And I think that's just the weakness of that strategy of trying to maximize the damage you deal on your own turn, is that if you're Kanoing on your own turn, you can definitely deal 10, 15 damage out of nowhere and then just blow me up. But if you strand a card and you get too low, that's basically 1 or 2 extra turns you could have bought yourself to fish for, your combo pieces. But the scariest turn was when he was able to find a Sonic Boom off the top. I was at 35, and in my arsenal was Blue Out Muscle, and my hand was CNC, Red Pummel, and 2 blues, and he was at 3 life. So at this point, I was deciding, whether or not I should AB the Sonic Boom, because, it could hit another Sonic Boom off the top, or it can hit, I don't know, Aether Spindle, or just a lot of really bad things. And even if I AB3, I still take 1. A lot of the cards in his deck he can play off the top, even with 1. And even then, he can still play it, because I believe it's just discounted. But I ended up taking the full Sonic Boom because I knew that on my turn I had the win, basically not deterministically, but I had lethal is one way of putting it. If I play the Blue Out Muscle from Arsenal, if he blocks it with 1 card, I get to pummel, and at that point he has to pop off with only 3 cards in hand, no potions up. And even at 26, I don't think he can get there unless he goes for extremely niche lines that somehow gets there, Tome, Gaze, whatever, Spindle, all this crazy shenanigans. It's possible, but it's unlikely. And then if he tries to play around pummel and he blocks 6, I can still pummel it. He takes 1, he loses a card, and then I hammer for game. Or conversely, I play the Blue Out Muscle from Arsenal, and he has to pop off right then and there, while I have a blue and 2 reds in hand, which is basically 5 AB. Or if I'm able to AB 3, his Wildfire, and then block 2 more. And that's basically what happened. He actually drew into an energy potion that turn when I played the Blue Out Muscle, so that was the deciding factor that forced him to popping off. And unfortunately, it just wasn't close enough. He didn't have Blazing in hand. He forced to go for Tome, and I think the Tome drew him into reds or something, and the turn was pretty mediocre. He was able to play his Wildfire, and I could have just eaten the Wildfire because it was only for 4 and just pummeled him and ended the game there. But I was like, I don't know. It's even if there's a 1% chance that I lose this, I'm just not going to take it. So I AB3 it. He ends up blocking the Out Muscle, only taking 1, and from there I'll Arsenal and I'll kill him next turn because he already popped Storm Striders. I think what was interesting is that all the Kanos I played against almost, I don't know what it is, they have some sixth sense when I have pummel. It's they always pop off right when I know this is the moment that I can kill them if they block or if they block poorly. But yeah, so that was my Age experience. It was pretty fun. I wish I was able to go last year. Unfortunately, whenever the Age events came up, I was always busy on that weekend. But I'll probably be playing a lot of them this year just because, Bravo's not going to stick around for a long time. And if I want to, just get all the games in I can with him before he's gone, I might as well just go to all of them and keep running it back and see how I do. So that was it. And moving on to just some quick thoughts on Tunic Bravo. Overall, I think that the deck is good. Arguably even better than Tectonic Bravo. Overall, I feel like the deck is more consistent and you're less prone to mistakes, I feel like, because the game plan's a bit, I don't want to say simpler to make it sound like, oh, I'm playing Tectonic, I must be a Chad who's going for some crazy plays. It's just more the Tunic, game plan is very reminiscent of Oldham. It's very value based. It's it's much simpler, I would say. But the reason I like playing Tectonic so much is that, I really like, doing this math with Surge, looking at what attacks I've seen. Do I throw the CNC this turn to keep a Surge for next turn to draw into my Cripplings or Chokeslams, or do I just play a Chokeslam here and wait until I draw an attack? There's just a lot of things I like to consider, and that part of it makes it really fun for me. And I also think that, like, it's just whenever I play Tunic and Bravo, I can't help but notice every single moment where I could have made a Surge, but I can't. And because of that, the next turn is, like, worse because I don't have a Surge. So, but I'm not sure. I might give Tunic Bravo a try just because I don't want to write the deck off without trying it. I mean, well, I have tried Tunic and Bravo, but not specifically like the shell that's been going around recently, that Michael Hamilton has been playing. I doubt that I'll switch over just because I have a cold foil Tectonic and I want to use it. But still want to give it a try. Still want to see how I feel, like which deck's favored in the mirror, or which deck does it help matchups where maybe Tectonic isn't as great. Because right now I don't really have any issues with Tectonic. Like, having 3 block to use at any point is great. For the most part, Surge is almost as strong as Tunic. I feel like Tunic gains the edge because you don't need to run as many blues, and because you don't run as many blues, you can play more power cards, which means more poppers or more sideboard slots. But I'm kind of in the position right now where, like, since Icelander and Lexi have LL'd, I have extra sideboard slots that I don't really know what to do with. And since the meta is so wide open, it doesn't really feel like I don't really know what sacrifices to make for which matchups. So that's something I'll be looking into in these next few months. And who knows, maybe the meta will completely flip on its head with heavy hitters, but I kind of doubt that. So yeah, that was my quick little recap. I've just been rambling on for like 30 minutes or so. Wow. But hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely will be coming back with more content, hopefully. I'll probably do like first impressions on like the new heavy hitters heroes and what I think about them, how I feel like they'll fit into the meta, things like that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Once again, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like, I don't plan to start a Patreon or anything for Flesh and Blood. I just come on here to talk about stuff and engage with the community, which is fun. And whenever you guys like or comment, it means a lot. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.